So I'm just going to say this right now. Get a mentor. Find somebody who's doing what you like to do and try to learn from them. Like, I don't care if you have to go get their coffee. I don't care if you have to, like, whatever you got to do. If you're wrapping cables or something, like, find somebody who's doing this, because you will learn things just by association. You can't avoid that. Like, if you're just like, it's fun. It's so funny. Like, my dad is a mechanic for works on cars, and I know things just by association. Like, my dad talked about it all the time. He was there all the time. Sometimes he'd ask for my help and do little things. And like now, like when somebody's talking to me at work and they're like, I don't understand what's going on with my car, I'm like, let's go for a ride. And I'm like, oh, this is exactly what's going on. Like, yeah, this is a tire, tire out. This is, your tire's cupped or something like that. It's like all these things that I just know just because I was around it and I experienced it. Those are shortcuts that it's so hard to teach, because if somebody was like, and sat me down and was like, teach me everything you know about cars, like I don't know. Like, I don't even think I know a lot about cars, but just by association, I do. And so the best way to do it is just to get around a mentor. And if you can't do that, find somebody online. Like, the internet's in a crazy place right now where you can learn so much. Like, just find somebody you like on YouTube and just ask if they're willing to get on calls with you. Like, ask if they have anything at all that you can learn from. You will learn so much more by finding somebody who's done what you want to do, and you just talk to them. And by association, you will learn things. I think that, if, at least for me, is the most important thing that I would tell myself if I was going back in time and saying, hey, these are 3 things you needed to do.
Man, that was one on my list too. I totally agree. It was
the universal principles.
Yeah, mine said like I made a note, and it was like get a mentor or find a community where you can learn, or something along those lines. Like
Yep.
Get educated. And like for me, I'm very grateful to have had a couple of mentors in my life as well.
As am I.
But an example of it for me was also just like I did go to audio school for 2 years to study, and that just fast tracked a lot of things for me. It's absolutely not necessary to go to audio school. Like, that was my version of like learning production and learning a lot of things. But like any version of that, like going through a course or just learning from someone who does it as a career, like some of the professors I had, like had at one point been like full-time producers and then moved into teaching and stuff like that. So it's like, okay, these people know what they're doing. Like, for example, now, like, we both work in music. Like, I do mixing. Like, that's what I do. And so now we're moving into like teaching. So like, if you're here at this podcast, like this is a great place to be. So you're already starting to check this box by being here. So it's like, get a mentor, get a community, and you can learn so much and just speed all things up. It's like, imagine if you wanted to get good at mixing, for example, and you literally knew absolutely nothing, and you were just like given a compressor, and you couldn't read anything about it. You couldn't talk to anyone about it. There was no education about it. All you could do was like trial and error, mess with the compressor. Eventually you'd get it and you'd figure it out and you'd understand how it works. But how much faster would it go, assuming you know nothing about compressors, that someone came, like, let's say you have an 1176 compressor. You have an expert like next to you saying, okay, this is the attack. Here's what it does. Watch. Here's the release. Yep. Here's what it does. Watch. Here's the input. We're hitting an internal threshold. Here's what the threshold is. Here's what the ratio is. And just explains it to you. Then it wouldn't take you like a year or two of just like testing out the compressor with having no idea what it's doing, which like in my earliest days of messing with GarageBand, I remember like not even opening up a compressor on the track because I was just afraid of what it did. But then once I got educated, it's like, here's what a compressor does. Fast tracked all of that for me, because like I probably still would have stayed away from compressors of just being scared. So like, get educated, whether it's a mentor, like a community, or subscribing to this channel, for example. Get educated. So mine totally aligns with yours. That was on my list too, for sure.
That's amazing. I do want to kind of piggyback off that real quick, because like this can be like super disappointing. Like just because I understand where some people are coming from, because dude, I live in a town with like 1,500 people max. Like I think we talked about, what was it, like 2,000 people is like my town's population. It's not a lot.
Yeah.
It's very small. And I remember like people saying, you gotta find mentors, and I was like, I am like screwed, right? So like I ended up finding somebody who now like they do this in Nashville now. And and they lived about like 45 minutes from me. And so like I drove to their like home studio like once, twice a week and learn from them. Now, if you are somebody who's in a position like I am and you have no idea where you can go, no idea where you can learn, don't worry, because the internet has opened up so many possibilities. Like they used to say, and it's still true, like you are the sum of the 5 people you hang around with. I like to take this another step further, and I like to say that you are the sum of the 5 people whose content you consume. So, like, if you're listening to this podcast and you're listening to, like, 4 other people who are teaching the same stuff, you will become more like us in that aspect because you're learning from us and you're learning the things that we do. And you just have to kind of envelop yourself and surround yourself with that content. One of the best things I ever did, and it was actually by accident, when I started my YouTube channel, I created a new YouTube account, the whole 9 yards, right? And I was starting to get recommended content that had nothing to do with what I originally was getting recommended, because it was a brand new channel, and my interests had shifted. And so now I was getting recommended content that was significantly different than what it used to be because my interests had shifted. And then I started to become more like the 5 people I started to really follow. You know, it was like Tony Robbins, for example, where I was like, what is this mindset stuff? This is crazy. You know, like that was just wild to me to see that kind of stuff come about. And I thought it was amazing. And so one of the best things I think anybody could do is just go through their list and just start unfollowing people just to clear out the noise. Find like 5 people you really, really like to listen to, and then surround yourself with their content and with the content. You don't have to have a physical in-person mentor. That's not necessary. If you could find one, by all means, but it's not necessary. I think one of the best things that you can do is you can find somebody that is online if you are living in a spot like, for example, where I'm at. It's really hard to find people in that aspect. So yeah, I want to encourage people, not discourage them. You have an advantage, and that is the internet. If you're listening to this podcast, you have access to the internet. You have access to the resources that you need.
There are absolutely no excuses. Like literally, and I have an example of this, like one of my very close mentors, who is a specific person that mentored me directly. At the time, I had lived in the same city as him. And we literally lived 5 minutes from each other, but we were both like very, very busy kind of people, and we never had a chance to actually like get together. So despite living 5 minutes away, it didn't matter. Like I visited him at his studio maybe like 4 times ever.
Oh, wow.
And literally, I learned so much about him, just about the music industry and about career momentum and like literally building my career. Like I owe a lot of, I always like tell him like I wouldn't be where I'm at without what I've learned from you. And all of it happened mostly from like long phone conversations or him sending me podcasts, like literally like listen to this, like next part, and then he'd send me an audiobook and be like, this is the next part of your training or something. So like it didn't I was 5 minutes away from him, but we still found it more effective just to build a strong mentorship relationship just using the internet, because that's how we made it work with both of our schedules and our time, because we were so busy. So like there's no excuse. It doesn't matter if you live in a city of like 1,000 people. It doesn't matter if you live in a large city. Like I've lived in a couple different large cities now, and that was a large city. We were a few minutes from each other, and still the internet was the best possible thing. So if you're doing this from Antarctica, it's completely possible, because I built my entire career based off mentorships like that, for example. Like it's totally doable. But with all this said, like I think that's a really strong point, and I think we should maybe jump into number 2.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there is a reach out strategy. I think we should make that a different podcast. If you're interested in making that, like, or in listening to that podcast episode and you want us to make it, let us know in the comments about like ways to reach out to mentors.
Yeah.
So that
that's
because
a whole other thing.
Yeah, that's a whole other thing. That's an episode about for itself.
Oh, I could go on that podcast. I know you could too.
Oh yeah, dude, I know, because I have done the stupid things and I've done the smart things, and I found that the smart things work better. And so yeah, if you want to know what the smart things are, and we'll make an entire episode dedicated to that. If you're interested, we're not going to make it though if you don't want it. Just let us know in the comments if you're interested.
Awesome.